right. Welcome to the ninth edition of the Hot Seat with your host Cam Perry. With me, I got Paulo back. I'm sure you guys have been wondering about Paulo. I know all my audience members have been asking about him, but he's finally back. And also got Brandon. He's back too. And before we get started, tell people where they can find your social medias before we get started. So if they want to find out all your sports related content, they know where to look.
Well, I only really use my Facebook mostly, so just look me up by name. And if you want to go check out the writers' pages on Real Sport Media or realsport101.com, it's just my name. Look it up on the writers, or you could check out the articles list to see what's going on there. So yeah.
And vice versa, same here. You can find me at Real Sport 101 through the articles list or through the authors, and you'll find my name, Brandon Zezma. Or you can find me on Instagram at BZEZ period 2.
All right, so we're gonna get started. I'm sure you guys, everyone's watching at home, has seen the college football games that happened this past weekend. Most guys, like myself, we thought this was probably gonna be the worst weekend in college football because there was no top 25 matchups happening this past weekend. But we had a couple really good games. We had Georgia and Clemson struggling against, lower competition, like teams that they should be beating by 30 to 40 points. And then you have Oklahoma State losing to Central Michigan. That game was absolutely crazy because I feel like if the coach would have just punted the ball out of bounds, the game would have been over. Instead of having to throw the ball, and get intentional grounding. And according to the refs, they said that that Central Michigan had an untimed down, so they could throw the ball deep down the field and a lateral. And then you said what happened? They got upset. And later, after the fact, the MAC refs said that they made a mistake. And I feel like if Oklahoma State runs the table, which I don't think they will, but if they do, then this loss will hurt them because even though they lost unfairly and probably should have won the game, the coach made a mistake and put them in that position. So I feel like if they run the table, I mean it's something that they won't be able to run away from because they shouldn't be losing to MAC competition. I mean it's different if you lose to like a Power 5 team. Just like what we're going to talk about in a second, we're going to talk about the marquee games that are going on this weekend. We're going to talk about Ohio State and OU. The game this weekend is going to be great. Then we also got Louisville and Florida State. Those are both two games that are going to have high playoff implications. And I want your opinion, Brandon, because I know you're an Ohio State fan. I live in the Sooner country. I think OU is going to win the game because, like I said, I didn't think beginning of the season that they were going to lose against Houston and Ohio State. I thought they would split one of those games. I thought Ohio State would be the game that they would probably lose at the beginning, but since they can't afford to lose any more games, I think that the Oklahoma Sooners playing at home will definitely win this game. I want your take on it.
I could definitely see the game being close. Obviously, I mean they're two ranked teams. Ohio State right now is ranked 3. Oklahoma's 14, but I mean, unless you're number 1 or 2 and it's by a landslide, I mean, usually nobody's safe in the top 25. I mean, any game can go to anybody. Even if you are one of the top 2 teams, we're just talking about with Alabama and Georgia playing close games against teams they should have blown out. This is going to be close. And I mean, it's going to be a tough one for Ohio State, going into Oklahoma. I mean, I'm an Oklahoma fan, so I'm an Ohio State fan, so I want to say that we're going to win, but, I mean, I honestly couldn't tell you because, I mean, we're 2-0, they're 1-1, but, I mean, they could win, I could see it happening. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go with Ohio State by a field goal, but, I mean, I haven't watched enough this season to really see both teams and, see the matchups and who's has the strengths and what has the weaknesses and what categories. But sticking with the Buckeyes, I'm going to go with a 3-point victory.
Do you think that Tulsa gave Oklahoma the blueprint to beat Ohio State? Because Ohio State in that game against Tulsa, they really didn't play that well until towards the end of that second quarter because you saw at the beginning they were struggling to stop the run. And Oklahoma, OU got a bunch of running back threats that they got to worry about. They got to worry about Mixon. They also got to worry about P. Ryan. While Ohio State, I don't think they got one dynamic back on their squad right now. I mean, they got J.T. Barrett, but I think their problem was in that game, especially early on, was that they didn't have a balanced offensive attack, and they relied more on the defense and J.T. Barrett doing his magic. So, do you think that could be an issue when they play against a team that is not as lower level and a lower echelon team as Tulsa was?
You're right. I could see it. I obviously see it being an issue, and you could easily see it come up in this game. I mean, Ohio State, as you said, they don't really have that running back in the backfield, and that's probably because they've been so high up on Ezekiel Elliott, who we'll talk about later. Um, that they relied on him so much in the last few years. I guess they really didn't focus on producing a backup behind him because he's really the bell cow for that offense. So that's just because they're 2-0 and have the chance to be a really good squad doesn't mean that's not going to affect them. And we saw that last week with Tulsa. So yeah, that could really hinder them.
And also, do you think it's a travesty that game day is not at the OU game, OU Ohio State game, instead of they're covering the Louisville Florida State game? Because these are two of the top five biggest programs ever, and that's not the game, the highlight game. I mean, we know that Florida State's number 2 in the country. We know Louisville's number 10 in the country, but there's no guarantee that either one of those teams, even though I think the ACC front runner is definitely Florida State right now. There's no guarantee that either one of those teams is actually going to win the ACC or even be in the playoff hunt. But we'll talk about that in a second. Do you think that that's a travesty? And also, do you think that Ohio State will run the table and win the Big Ten?
For the first question, yeah, I think it's a travesty. I mean, no disrespect to Louisville, and I'm sorry, I know you said who they're playing. Who are they though? Who are they playing?
Florida State.
Florida State. No disrespect to either of those teams, especially Florida State being second ranked in the nation. But I think everybody can easily see. Come on, it's Ohio State and it's Oklahoma. Like this game should be televised. I mean, it may be, but this should be the big game everybody's supposed to be watching. And
Yeah, and I think that ESPN missed the mark not having that game because that game's on Fox Sports, which I don't know why. Like that,
I don't know.
doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, this ESPN usually feeds off games like this. Like this is their bread and butter. These are the games that they're hyping up months ahead beforehand. Like this game's going to be on ESPN. You better be there to watch it. They got the highlight reels going. They're talking about it all week on SportsCenter, and they will. But it's not the game that's going to be televised. So ESPN missed the mark there. So that was disappointing. And to say, are they going to run the table? When you say that, are you talking about, do I think they're going to go undefeated?
Yeah, will they go undefeated and will they win the Big Ten? Those are two different questions, but I want your take on it because the Big Ten is probably the most impressive conference that I've seen so far this year.
I mean, it has been very impressive. I just feel like it's so early to make that kind of prediction right now. I know we're already 2 weeks in, but then again, we're only 2 weeks in. So I want to say they are, but I don't know yet. I don't, because these teams a lot of teams have made strides in the right direction to become more competitive with Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's lost a few, I mean, not Oklahoma, but Ohio's lost a few good players in the draft in recent years. So, I mean, the gap's closed off a little bit. So we'll see, make that prediction in a few weeks.
Okay, we'll move on to our next point, talking about the next big game that's coming on, the game that everyone's waiting to watch. That game is going to be there, and that is the Louisville Florida State game. So that game is going to be exciting to watch because we have the Heisman front runner Lamar Jackson. He's already had 13 touchdowns for the year, which is impressive in my eyes. He's pretty much doing exactly the same type of things that, remember last year we had Leonard Fournette was doing these crazy things, posting video game numbers. This year, Lamar Jackson's that type of guy. And I think that this is a first big game of a plethora of games that Louisville has a really good chance to make a case why they should be in the playoff, because if they beat Florida State, they got Clemson in a couple weeks after that. And then they also got a month from that time, they also have to play Houston. So they're going to play potentially 3 top 10 teams within a 2 month period. So it's going to be impressive to watch. Do you think that Louisville has a chance to upset Florida State, or do you think that Florida State will continue their dominance and win this weekend?
Um, I, I think it'll be close because I mean, Louisville's been one of those teams the last 2 years that has been making improvements, and they've been watching the teams like the Florida States and the Alabamas and the Ohio States, always competing. And I think they're starting to mature and get to the point where they're ready to say it's our time. Um, but it's games like this where you start to try to prove it. To say Florida State's going to continue their dominance, I don't think they will dominate them, but I think Florida State can still win. Florida State will still win the game though, but it will be close.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just say right now, I think that Louisville's gonna pull the upset. I don't know why. I mean, I could be completely wrong, just like I was about the LSU pick, but I just think that Louisville this year has something to prove. They're going to just try to outscore your opponents because they don't have any defense whatsoever. I mean, they pretty much allowed Syracuse to score at will against them, but they just outscored them. And I think this can be one of those entertaining teams to watch this year that's just going to put a lot of points at you. Unless you got a dominant defensive team like an Alabama, I mean, who's going to really stop them? I mean, so I think this is going to be probably the funnest game to watch over the weekend, but also I think this is going to be the one upset that people are not going to be talking about. So, but the next thing we're going to mention is all these NFL games that we saw this past weekend. The most impressive game that I watched was definitely the New England Arizona Cardinals game, and Jimmy Garoppolo impressed me. I don't know what it is, but Bill Belichick, every year, it don't matter who the quarterback is, they keep plugging in quarterbacks and they don't miss a beat. So I want your thoughts on, do you think that Jimmy Garoppolo can run the table while Brady's out and win all four of those games? Because at the beginning I thought maybe they'd be 2-2, but it's looking like they'll probably be 3-1 after this 4 game stretch with Brady coming back.
Yeah, I agree with you on the 3-1 that they're probably going to go 3-1. I mean, I don't think the Dolphins really pose a big threat to the Patriots next week, and I mean every game coming up is going to be a home game, so Patriots have an advantage there. I think the only game I really see them losing is they're playing the Dolphins, Texans, and Steelers.
Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo. My bad. Yeah, probably it's between Buffalo and the Texans, who are probably going to beat the Patriots, but I'd say more likely the Bills, because the Bills actually have like not an elite defense, but they're actually not too bad players that they have and the talent they have on defense, and they do have Sammy Watkins at the moment. We're not sure if he's going to get injured again, and LaShawn McCoy had a really strong first week, so we can expect him to kind of be a problem for the Patriots, but not too much really.
And you got Rex Ryan. I mean, he for some reason he's able to game plan good defensive schemes, and and Bill Belichick, for some reason, that's one of the coaches that he usually struggles against head to head, because he's just a defensive minded coach, and that's what you need against the Patriots. You can't beat the Patriots trying to outscore them. It just won't happen unless you're the New York Giants. They're the one team that for some reason can beat Brady, but we'll talk about that when we get closer. If there's a Giants Patriots part 3, which I love to see that, because I want Eli to win that third ring, because he's done it twice already. So
yeah.
So they've played the first week against Arizona, and I'm gonna be the first one to say I apologize to my Patriots for picking the Cardinals, but I mean, I was thinking with my head and not my heart, and I think we all saw Arizona winning in Arizona against the Brady-less and Gronk-less Patriots. But good news on the Patriots end. This morning I heard that Gronk is back in practice, so that is good. So it's another weapon for Garoppolo. And like you said, I could see Buffalo being that tough game for them, because whatever it is, Rex Ryan always does have some kind of formula. For New England, the thing is, the reason why it's usually tough is because they do really well, defensively against New England. But last time they played them, last year when they played in Buffalo, even though this game's going to be at home, I mean, Brady was like, okay, I understand we can't run against this team, so we're going to throw against them. And he torched them. I mean, Garoppolo did well, But I think the game that's going to be tough for them is next week. It's Miami because Miami is the team that went into Seattle and almost won. It wasn't an offensive affair. They made it a real down in the trenches, muddy, gritty type of game. That I mean, Seattle's never been, an offensive juggernaut. They're usually more of a defensive team. But I mean, they have plenty of weapons themselves. Whether it be Jermaine Curse or whether it be tight end from New Orleans, Jimmy Graham. So, I mean, and I know they don't have Marshawn, but I mean, they still have running game. They have a really good offensive line, Seattle. So I could see if Miami played them that well in Seattle, I mean, I could see Miami being like, okay, we lost. You never want to take a moral victory in the NFL, but like, you could kind of see maybe we got a shot against New England. Like, if we're going to get one, we're going to fight in this division. It's going to be this game when Tom's not there because he's going to be back next time. So I'd see Miami's a tough game, but I could see them going 4-0 though.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Miami's going to be the game they drop for the fact that Miami usually beats the New England Patriots once every year for whatever reason. Like they usually split the series between the two teams. I don't know why. Because the Dolphins, they don't have a better roster than the Patriots, but they just know how to play them tough. And it wouldn't shock me in the world if they did, but it also wouldn't shock me if Buffalo did either. But it's going to be interesting to watch. And this season really has been a weird one so far because there's been a lot of teams where they just haven't looked as good as I thought they would look. I mean, Carolina is a perfect example. I thought they would have destroyed the Broncos. And we'll talk about this, right now because do you think that Cam Newton was hit too much and then the refs didn't call those hits? But because it was just ridiculous how he just kept taking the punishment and they just wouldn't call. But if it had been someone like Brady or someone like Drew Brees or someone like that, or even Aaron Rodgers, they would have made those calls. Do you think that Cam Newton's not getting the superstar treatment that these other players are getting?
I don't think he's getting that superstar treatment. And I guess as a quarterback, especially of his stature and how much he's proved and what kind of star he is in the league now, he's deserving of it. I'm not saying to give him perks, but he is a quarterback, and this league is all about protecting the quarterback. I mean, you can look to practices. I mean, unless you're injured, it's the quarterback that's the one that's wearing the different colored jersey, that red jersey. You can't touch him, And some of the hits that Cam was taking on Thursday night. I mean, I'm not sure who the defender was, but I've been seeing the replay of the clip all weekend long and up to this point. There's the defender. Cam was running out on the left-hand side. He was scrambling, and there's two guys on him. One was going for his waist, and the other one, you can see, like, it just looks like he deliberately lunges himself in the air with his head, with his helmet, aiming with his helmet against Cam's. Like, that's a penalty. And the way, Cam turns and falls down, he's down for a while. I mean, I know they didn't say he got a concussion, but you're really risking a guy's, career there taking a kind of hit like that. I mean, I know he did get disciplined, but, I'm surprised they didn't come down harder on some of these guys and they let those kind of calls just go by, during the course of a game.
Yeah, and you see the effects of, someone like RG3, who his career is probably done because he is, been taking so many hits. And instead of Cam Newton, where he generally avoids to take those hits, RG3 just for some reason is not willing to run out of bounds, slide, or whatever reason to avoid injury because he's now injured again, has a shoulder injury, and he's probably done in the NFL. I'm not sure your thoughts on it, but I just think that RG3 is, he needs to just find another job because he just isn't meant to play in the National Football League because he's just not strong enough. He's not big enough to be able to take those hits. And it's just such a physical game, and you got so many players nowadays that are having serious side effects from playing in the NFL because they took all those hits while they were in the league.
Yeah, I'd also agree with you on the RG3's career. It's not really going to go out anywhere. The injuries definitely come in his games before he joined the Browns, and his last couple of games as a Redskin, that he wasn't playing very well. Then he got injured, and his replacement did better, and he still didn't perform well enough. And now he finally got his chance again on the Browns, a team that really needed somebody like RG3. RG3 was pretty much what Johnny Manziel was to be to them before Johnny Manziel showed up. You know what I mean? He led the Redskins and all that, and well, now he's lost another chance because he does what you said. He doesn't want to dodge the hits.
Yeah, and my point going back to the Broncos, do you think that Trevor Siemian will lead the Broncos to the playoffs, or do you think that Oakland is the front runner to win the AFC East?
Well,
Um,
I like that question. Yeah.
I I I can see Denver still making the playoffs as Oakland looked, and I like Oakland. As impressive they looked against New Orleans. I mean, and I know they were playing Drew Brees though, but their defense got torched. I don't think Trevor Simeon's the type that can, torch a defense yet. I mean, he's young, but I don't know if any one team has really shown that they can dominate. I mean, there was the AFC West matchup this week with San Diego and Kansas City, and it's a tale of two halves. I mean, Kansas City was getting dominated in the first half. I mean, I remember I wasn't even watching the game, but I checked my phone and I'm like, wow, San Diego, everybody's been pushing them to the side because everybody thought they had potential the last few years. And it's like, okay, they kind of gave up on them. I'm like, all right, San Diego is, trying to show like we're still around. And then the second half came along and they lost. What were they up? 21-3, I think, at one point.
Yep.
It's a good and bad look for both teams. I mean, it looked good for the Chargers and bad for the Kansas City in the first half, and then it flipped in the second half. So, I mean, that was a close game that could have gone either way. And then Oakland, as impressive as it was going to New Orleans, I mean, they can put up a lot of points, but you were playing the Saints defense, and you couldn't play defense. But I mean, you were playing Drew Brees, so I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. And Denver still has a dominating defense, so we'll see.
I still think that to go back to the question that I was asked earlier, I think the Raiders actually have if we had to go by chance, that right now that I'd peg them at 55% at getting it, and I'd give the Broncos 45. And that's mainly because the Raiders have a more complete team than the Broncos right now. The Broncos have the weapons on the wide receivers, but their tight end isn't as good as he used to be. Julius Thomas isn't there anymore. They have Trevor Siemian leading the team. And then, you have the Broncos defense, and there's also that rumor that they wanted to trade to lead. And I mean, the Broncos defense is obviously one of the best defenses in the league, but we do have to see whether they can carry the Broncos entirely, because, it's not really a reliable offense at the moment, especially from the running backs position too. I mean, was it C.J. Anderson still starting, and Ronnie Hillman, and I forget another guy's name, but yeah, my bad, but they're not really producing as they could have been. They could be at this moment, especially with the kind of gap at the quarterback position. But the Raiders have a complete game at the moment. Amari Cooper is going to be one of the best wide receivers of the year, I guess, for the next couple of years. Him and Odell are probably the youngest and best receivers at the moment. You could also put Kelvin Benjamin on the watch list for that.
I'm about to say you also can't forget in Antonio Brown. He's up there too.
Oh yeah, Antonio Brown too. Yeah.